It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Hi, welcome to Wine Time. We are going to be talking about my garden, such as it is right now, our plans for it, and giving you a few tips on how you might want to think about your backyard and garden as well. So this backyard started out as just a very big blank rectangle, and we had a really awful bright orange stained cedar fence. So the first thing that we have done is to paint the fence this really pretty green, gray, blue, and it certainly has made it much more peaceful. But my plan for this garden is to turn it into more of a Mediterranean garden. And so what does that mean to me? Because I'm not a garden expert. What that means to me is that we're going to start with some different elements, and I'll kind of run through them quickly now, and then I can talk about them in a little bit more detail. So Mediterranean gardens typically have a plant palette, which of course would be native to the Mediterranean, whether it's France or Italy, etc. And so that palette and the number of plants is actually pretty varied. So you're going to have a lot to choose from. I'll kind of give you a little hint about what I'm going to be doing in a minute. So you've got your plants, obviously. One of the other things that's characteristic of a lot of Mediterranean gardens is ground cover. It's gravel and decomposed granite that are used for pathways and patios, etc. It's very common for a patio to actually be set up on gravel in the Mediterranean, and so that's another hallmark of that style. Then you have pots. Oh my goodness, the most beautiful pots, and the shape and the color of a pot really sort of depends upon where along the Mediterranean that you find yourself. But in the south of France, you will find some biot jars, which are old olive oil jars, and then you'll also find some pots that are called Anduze vases. They're really not vases, they're huge, and those are also beautiful, and so that's a big element. And then of course you have wonderful furniture for sitting out and enjoying the outdoors, almost always an umbrella or some sort of awning that's attached to a house, a table, and some chairs. But let's talk about plants. A lot of the plants in the Mediterranean tend to have cooler tones, more silvery foliage, blue or purple flowers, etc., punctuated with some whites, etc. And I think those may be more commonly found in Mediterranean gardens because they're so cooling. When you look out at your gardens, you just see just this lovely coolness, and the summers do get hot there, y'all. So to be able to look out and see that sense of coolness from a palette perspective is really enticing. You'll see a lot of herbs in those gardens, which of course is very functional and practical. Fruiting trees, olives obviously, but then other fruiting trees as well. And we are not going to be able to do really any fruiting trees in this yard, I don't think, unless I can somehow, some way, coax some olive trees along, which I would love. But my intent is to keep with a cooler palette. And one of the things that's great about the pots that you find in a Mediterranean garden is that it gives you the opportunity to experiment around with some different shrubs and flowers, etc. And you can find the perfect spot in terms of sun and shade. If something doesn't do well, you don't have to dig it out of the ground. You can just take it out and replace it with something else. It's obviously perfect for annuals, etc., etc. And so I do love the idea of doing a lot of container gardening, and that is really what we are going to do here. We're going to leave the perimeter of the yard somewhat more minimally planted. We will put up some vines along the fence and train them along wires. Those will probably be wild jasmine and some honeysuckle. And I'll be using varieties that are frost hardy because we do get the frost here. And the palette will definitely be those soft silvers and the blues, some whites, etc. And then I'll probably punctuate it with a little hit of a warmer tone, whether it's a hot pink or a yellow, etc. And that's sort of the fun of being able to plant everything in containers. We're going to create a great big huge island of decomposed granite in the middle of our yard, and that is where we will be adding a bunch of different pots. We're going to be bringing in some antique pots, of course, as well as some pots that we have found in France that are new, that are just spectacular. And oh my gosh, I almost forgot. A huge element of Mediterranean gardens is a water feature. Somehow, somewhere, you will hear tinkling water. We are going to create a water feature here. We will probably do an old French fountain that's fairly rugged and rustic, and we'll just put a bubbler in it. Have a wonderful, wonderful lead statue that of a girl, one of the Four Seasons that my husband gave me years and years ago for my 40th birthday. And so she will find a pride of place here. And then we will be putting in a great teak dining room table. And for the first time ever, because I usually hate them, but we'll be using one with an umbrella hole in it. We have no real shade here in the backyard except in this one corner where I am right now. And so we will be using an umbrella on the reg for the dining room table, and it'll just be a classic white, great big huge rectangular umbrella. And then we'll be using an all-weather wicker chair for the chairs, something that's got some arms, that's really capacious and sits really well, so that people will want to linger out here in this new, hopefully gorgeous garden oasis that we are in the process of creating. Oh, wine time. This is a gray rosé from Provence. We learned that tip when we were visiting an antiques dealer friend of ours in Ile-sur-la-Sorgue, and she always orders a gray rosé, and it's just a rosé that is not quite as peachy pink as what we typically see, and it tends to be drier. And so, and I prefer a drier rosé. So there you go. Look for a more gray rosé when you're shopping for wine, and you will not be sorry. Cheers.